Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
The Nation Station, Manx Radio.
Master Mai, good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line on Manx Radio. Open line this Friday lunchtime. Lots of messages in recently, and particularly lots of people commenting about the parking in Douglas in the car park next to Barbary Coast. That's the one that used to be the old bus station. Do you remember when we had a proper bus station with a newsagent? And a waiting room, place you could check in for the airport. Well, can you imagine how that is nowadays? Can you imagine the fact that we used to have a proper bus station there? Now it's just a car park. More than just a car park, it's a free-form car park. Anybody can do whatever they want. Apparently, parking is... some people are blocking people in for hours at a time. So... what's going to happen there? There is a landowner there, and there was going to be a big development. Do you remember? They're going to have a cinema, hotel, multi-storey car park. It's going to have everything there on the site of the... thank you to David, who told me, by the way, the newsagents at the old bus station was Unsworth's newsagent. But it's just become a free-form car park. Now, I know we're making some movement with the brownfield sites in Douglas, but that bus station is a prime site. Particularly the thousands of people who come on the boat for TT, walk to that line of bus stops that we call a bus station, and they see, and will have seen now for how many years? Over 10 years? One time the fun fair was on it. And at the moment, it's just... I don't know whether you've ever been blocked in that car park. I know certainly words have been passed between people in that car park. And you just wonder what's going to happen. Who's in charge of the darn thing? David's first on with us today. Hi, David.
Hi, mate. Maybe we should do a programme of all the properties that government own in our custodial for the public, and we'll find out who's responsible and why aren't the ministers making decisions on them. But anyway, I can tell you a story when that terminus was there. You used to get soup from a machine, and I forget how much it was. And remember the carton machine?
Oh, yes.
Milk from?
Oh, the milk cartons that you couldn't open.
Yeah, that was before the triangular packs, or whatever they're called nowadays. But the benefit that was there, and is not now, is there's no toilets. You know, if you have a place where people are waiting for a bus to wait, you need some convenience, don't you?
It just seems silly, and sometimes, I'll be honest with you, David, I doubt myself, because it seems like we're stating the blinding obvious. It's gone backwards. It used to be a civilised bus station. Now, people queue up like cattle. Yep.
They're treated poorly, like you say. But anyway, we've got a set of politicians who, and I want to complain slightly on that, of the members now jumping ship because they don't like a department. And I'm disappointed in some of them. If they can't get their way, why don't they change the policies? There's one there complaining now that they're having interference from either the Council of Ministers or some other influence. Let's get it on the floor of Timbles, get it explained, and then we'll get an answer back on it. Is it telling them which way to go, or was it the right way to say, you're not going down the right road, you need to change things?
But there's always been interference, David. Politicians that's what they do. They politic. They try and influence one another. They lobby, they cajole, sometimes they threaten, sometimes they bully. It's what politicians do.
They do, and they're not whiter than white. There's none of them whiter than the white. But what I want to come on from, the major thing really, was to give praise to the Chief Constable. I think you should have him on again in maybe another month's time and see how he's fitting into the Isle of Man, because he's been successful. And his jig words, I'm paraphrasing, really is, if you're doing the crime, you're doing the time. And that's what I think people are liking all the time. We're getting things done, and it's reflected in the the Parliament, we'd be on a better road, wouldn't we?
Well, he certainly seems to be. It's fair to say that Russ Foster isn't what you call high profile. I think he's letting the officers do the talking. He's letting the work that they do the talking, which I suppose is better than the other way round.
Yes, but at the end of the day, he set the policy, hasn't he? The plan is, if you're doing drugs, if you're doing crime on the Isle of Man, even if you're coming from Liverpool, Derby is the place for you where you're going to stay. And he's put that message out there, isn't it? And he's saying to people all the time that if you're doing this, that's where you're going to be. And that's, to me personally, that's what I like about the Isle of Man. Is still safe if people listen from afar. It's a nice place to be, although it's pouring down today. But we're only topping the reservoirs up for the summer, aren't we?
And as you say, anybody who's coming from anybody who's coming from anywhere in the world, we take it for granted that it's relatively crime-free. But for many places, they don't live in crime-free places. For many people, they don't live in crime-free places. And it is an absolute heaven on earth for many people, because you can walk down the street at 2 o'clock in the morning. You can walk from the boat at 5 o'clock in the morning in the middle of winter and saunter down a street trouble-free.
Yes. And the other thing is, you look at just happened last night there, Galloway. What a person to put on the television. And what hatred and vile statements to make out to the media there to say about their country. I'd be hating to live in England, wouldn't you?
Well, I'm glad I'm here, put it that way.
It is, and it's raining. Okay?
Have a good weekend. Thanks for being with us. All right, it's 14 minutes past 12 on Manx Radio. Surely, says David, WhatsApp 332, having a bus station with basic facilities is not surmountable for a city. And let's remember this, Douglas is a city. So you wonder, do the councillors of Douglas City Council, do their chests swell with pride every time they walk by Lord Street bus stops? What is it with this? What is it with that former site of the bus station? Is it beyond the wit of everybody involved just to say, let's sort it out? We may get used to it. We may not notice the elephant in the room. But our visitors do, and year after year after year they come and they see that. They see the nuisance site, they see the old Trafalgar pub at the bottom of Douglas Head Road. That's supposed to be our showcase. The North and South Quays are where all the trendy people go in the summertime. And yet we've got three absolute broken teeth looking at them. The South Quay site, we have Newsons, and we have the old bus station. Now, power to their elbow about getting the others done. The old Villiers Hotel, that's absolutely fine. Middlemarch, at some point, the Castle Mona will burst into life. But as it is, any thoughts on this? Text, email, call, and WhatsApp. We'd like to hear what you have to say. And thanks also for the many people yesterday who talked about these doorbells that you're going to have to register. The camera doorbells, which apparently, if they record images from beyond your curtilage outside your property, you're going to have to register and pay for the privilege. £70 registration, £50 a year for it. That's in addition to paying for the app that has to go with some of them. Surely dash cams, says Alison, are similar to doorbell cameras. So do drivers have to register with the Information Commissioner as well? I've got a Ring doorbell, but I'm registered through the through another organisation I'm involved with, says Alison. You just wonder how many of these are there on the Isle of Man. I mean, if there are a couple of thousand, that's an easy £100,000, isn't it, for the Information Commissioner? Nice money if you can get it. Is the Information Commissioner still UK-based, says G? I don't understand how a doorbell image is personal data unless you put a name and retain the image. A photo in a public place is absolutely fine. So maybe it's okay to take a photo from a public place. It's just that you can't take an image from a private place into a public place. Is it getting complicated? Someone on the UK News, says John, said that assisted dying will be damaging to society as a whole. Already NHS doctors are withholding cancer treatment for more elderly patients. Is that true, John? I mean, do you know that for a fact? certainly Westminster's waking up to the fact that we may have, well, we've certainly got this private members bill going through. Thanks for texting in as well. Does anybody know who looks after the wild ponies at the top of Glen Alden? There's one up there limping on its own, says Lucy on 911. Who's in charge of the ponies at the top of Glen Alden? They're going to be a bit miserable in this weather today. A pint is now up to the rim of the glass yesterday, says Steve, called in regard. Howard called up yesterday about the fact that the single-use plastics that we've been single-use plastic free, since last October. And what's going to happen during TT? Are they using these special polycarbonate ones? And is it going to be an absolute pint as well? What about the dash cams the police regularly ask for if anybody has incidents, images of accidents? We're into GDPR, by the way, which is a law unto its own, literally a law unto itself. Ring doorbells are an important way for police to gather evidence on crimes within the community. They're always asking if anybody with CCTV or ring doorbells can come forward. People will now be reluctant just in case they're fined for having one of these doorbells that takes pictures and records images from beyond your property. Let's save the planet and stop using plastic and cutting down trees to make paper bags, say Des. Which, interesting, what way do we get it around? Easy way to get video cameras registered is to issue wall signs or window stickers when you pay for the licence from the Information Commissioner. Just say 24-hour licence surveillance in operation. Maybe the rogues will take more notice of them and clear off. Well, happily, we're not a big burglary hotspot on the Isle of Man. It does pop up from time to time, but the police generally know what's going on in that instance. So if you have one of these video doorbells, are you going to cough up £70 to get it registered? Providing, of course, images come from beyond your property. £70 one-off, £50 per year. Howard's on with us today. Hi, Howard.
Hi, Andy. When you were talking yesterday about this particular thing, the doorbells, etc., and somebody saying about dash cams. But if you look at the buses that's floating around all over the island, and you look on them and it says external images being recorded, and they have equipment, a dash cam on front or back, whatever it is. So are they going to have to, as they're recording images of everything and everybody, are they going to have to go down the same road of registering all those cameras?
Well, you would think they probably are because it's government. And, I mean, they've got those basically in case they hit something or something hits them. I mean, that's what they're there for, aren't they?
Well, yes or no, because why would they have to say there's a... this came up when the buses first came here with these, and somebody raised this, and next thing you saw, there was the notice went on the back of all the buses informing the public that external images are being recorded. So there must have been something there that caused the government or the bus service to think about this. So if that's the case, and they've had to put notification, are they paying... I know it's only money going from one pot into another pot. They probably have about another 10 people work on the books. But you can't say to people, you've got to have this, and you're not complying with it yourself.
I can't see how they're going to enforce it. I mean, I simply don't know. I mean, are they going to send somebody around and check and look to see what sort of doorbell you've got?
Well, I've got CCTV outside the front of the house, and I ensured that it only went to the front fence. But I knew about this law a long time ago that you weren't allowed to, at the time, collect images of outside your personal area, your garden or backyard or whatever. A lot of people do. A lot of people just said, oh, I'm not going to bother with that, and just put the camera up. but that law has been around for a long time.
Well, yeah, and a lot of people can't. I mean, it just seems kind of anachronistic. It seems weird that you can take a photo from the public street and the pavement of anywhere, but you can't take some images from your door, which obviously nobody's doing it for nefarious reasons. It's just they're doing it to find out about, what's happening around their own particular property. It's not like anybody's gathering oceans of data from what's happening in the street. So it just seems a bit of a sledgehammer to crack a nut, Howard.
Yeah, and also, I don't know whether it's applicable here on the island. It is in a lot of places in the UK. Facial recognition cameras in the streets. Now, that is open ground for, somebody sitting in an office somewhere with the police or whatever it is. Oh, there's Charlie Brown there. Keep an eye on him. Follow him down through. He's all right. So it's Big Brother. It's H.G. Wells' job all over again. And he's going to be watched for every minute of the day. But speaking on that, that's not really what I came in for. I looked at the paper today, Britain's broken borders. Now, we know there are a lot of what was termed as illegal immigrants coming into Britain. There's also a lot of people coming in legitimately, but Mr. Neil, who is an independent advisor, etc., within the security in the UK, has been sacked because he, as a whistleblower, he said they weren't doing the job properly. And if people are coming into the country, and there was a lot of people come in through London City Airport, etc., and they weren't being checked. Now, do we have a similar problem here on the island, whereas if you come into the UK, we are part and parcel for the travel arrangements, just to travel back and forwards quite easily. But who do we know is coming into the island, and are they checked by the government, not just by a private company?
Because, we don't know, I think
no.
is the answer. I mean, anybody can come across on the boat. Nobody has to state the purpose of their visit or their business when they come over on the boat. I mean, obviously, if anybody then registered with government organisations, with social services or anything like that, that'll be flagged up. And, of course, there's no money forthcoming.
Well, I was in one day at the tax office. It was last year. And there was a lady there, and she was being questioned. Now, this is in the open one. I suppose she could have gone into a private room at one of the counters, and there's 2 counters down there in the tax office for tax purposes. And there's another one there for immigration, where they make application for work permits and permission to stay and everything. And that seemed to me, a bit innocuous, because that person could be a genuine person, or could be a person that's wanting to get in here and live on the island for, lots of pleasant reasons. And, there doesn't seem to be any checks you can go through. There's security checks with your luggage and bags and everything like that, but there doesn't seem to be any checks on who is coming in.
Well, I suppose that's the risk of it's a fairly easygoing society that we have here.
Yes, but if that's the way it should be, a fairly easygoing society, then you have no cause for complaint if something goes wrong. You can't turn on. You've got to have some sort of control. And the Isle of Man, and you just said it yourself, is a safe place to be. But it's progressively and quite rapidly in the last few years changing because of people bringing drugs and various other things into the island, smuggling. And nobody seems to know who and what. The police are trying to do their best, but they can't with their hands tied behind their backs. So if there's nobody there checking who's coming in, a means of identification. You've got to have a means of identification to get on an aircraft. It's not a permission to travel, it's just a permission to get on the aircraft, which could be a passport or a driving license. But who is checking these? It's only the ones I've seen when I've been travelling. The only ones that check those are the staff of that particular airline. And they're just giving you permission to go on board their aircraft.
Okay.
They're not looking for security.
All right. We appreciate that, Howard. Thanks for calling today.
Take care. Bye now.
All right, have a good weekend. Big John in Laxey said, we are allowed to trim hedges back before nesting starts, but some people are going far, far back, and some hedges are being desecrated. I've sent photos of a very sad, unhappy, formerly big hedge that isn't a big hedge anymore. Thanks to Big John in Laxey for that. Well, you are allowed to because it isn't nesting season, and as you say, some people are... how can I put it, getting their money's worth out of their hedge trimmers. Mark dropped a note in on 179. Plastic's a horrible invention. Microplastics now exist everywhere we look, including inside of us, inside the food we eat. It's this generation, leaded petrol, asbestos, CFCs, all rolled into one, says Mark. Thanks for that point on 179. And with regard, lots of people dropping notes in regarding video doorbells. You can add privacy boundaries on the recording software so that it's only your property being recorded, says Dodsey. Graham's on with us now. Hi, Graham.
Well, good afternoon. It's Graham speaking. I was calling in just basically about this whole concept of geothermal energy for the island.
Oh, it's Graham. Graham Fox-Hume. Hi, Graham.
Yes. Indeed. I did write into you saying that I'm actually giving up on that concept at the moment, simply because on the island here, I've been in touch with Dr. David Quirk, of course, who's another island geologist. And he has basically explained that the geology here isn't as suitable as it should be, and geothermal energy would absolutely be a non-starter for the island.
And what in particular prevents it, Graham?
Basically because we won't be able to drill for it here, certainly not adjacent to the power station, which is where would be the optimum site. You're going down through surface rocks that have been pushed up by the granite below, which is our target for the heat. And these are all standing on their end now. And if you drill down, the drilling bit will be deviated away from the target that you want.
Oh, I see. Are they slate, like slates?
Yes, it's slates. Yes, it's the Manx slate. Yes, it's what's known as a metamorphic rock. But it is still layered, and it's quite hard, so it would deviate the drilling bit. Basically away from your target, which you wouldn't be able to control, and would probably end up in the whole drilling arrangement becoming stuck in the ground. So right. Basically, as far as we are concerned, geothermal is a non-starter for the island. And
would that be the same across the whole Isle of Man?
You could conceivably do it further up north through a more sedimentary sequence, but by the same token, you're too far away from the power station by then.
Right, so so geothermal is off the menu.
I would take it off the menu personally, I'm afraid to say, yes, with great sadness, I must admit. No, the other alternatives, of course, have been looking at wind farms and the other renewable sources, yeah. Which, to be perfectly honest, for the island are just as bad. Wind farms at the moment, of course, on the island would be illegal because they kill protected species, gulls in particular. So the operators or owners or proposers would have to get exemption from that, which would be a great shame.
Where do you stand on the Kroger, on the gas field?
Well, that's fine. Yes, no, that would be a perfectly sensible and correct intermediate while we get things sorted out. Yes, no, I'm all in favour of that.
And what would you say? I mean, there are some people who are implacably against fossil fuel extraction from around the Isle of Man. And, and again, there are people who say it's an interim, it'll fund us in the meantime. What's your feel? You think it is an interim measure?
Yes, it is. Yes, we would certainly be... it would be well worth it to look at the alternatives in the meantime, yes. Actually, to be perfectly honest, diesel generators of the modern variety are probably the easiest way to go, as we're already established for them. that technology has cleaned up incredibly in the last years. So they're no longer the polluters and that sort of thing that they used to be.
Crikey,
So,
back to diesel.
Yes, why not?
Graham, I appreciate it tremendously. Thanks for coming on, and I know you've talked much about geothermal, but we are where we are, and I appreciate you clarifying it.
Okay, you're welcome.
Have a good weekend.
For listening to me.
Thanks
you.
very much indeed. A note in from Kay, who just said, "Afternoon, Andy. Regarding the bus station, it's a disgrace. No toilets, no waiting room. I seem to remember the person who bought the land was the one who changed it into a free place to park," says Kay. That's the thing. We have a line of bus stops. Don't call it a bus station. It's a line of bus stops. No loo, no waiting room. There is one, a couple of 100 yards away at the sea terminal, but it's a long way to run for the bus, isn't it? So how long is it going to be before that whole thing is sorted out? Here's a note in also said, "I once asked a bus van in staff member at Lord Street Station where I could legally take a pee late one night in TT Wake. His answer was, anywhere, I can't see you. Public toilets, I know, it's not a joke. Public toilets are a must for Manx people and for visitors as well." Do you remember we had a toilet watch, convenience watch a wee while ago? It may sound frivolous, it may sound, a little facile, but public toilets are a sign of a civilization. Public toilets they're a human right. Surely it's what measures us as a civilized society. And we ask people, many hundreds of people use those bus stops every day. There isn't a public toilet. It's not very friendly. And moving forward to a renewable and green future, public transport is going to be absolutely essential, unless you want to pop to the loo. Juan's on now. Hi, Juan.
The weekend again already, Andy.
I can't believe it. It's here already.
Goes so fast, doesn't it? There's a couple of things as you were talking now I was just going to jump onto there. You were talking about loos, and it just come to mind. I passed a squatter camp a couple of weeks ago where there's hundreds and hundreds of people just living in shacks. And the council just actually put them portaloos up at the bottom of these squatter camps. And the people won't even go in them. They just go and poo on the floor. So, as you said, it's a sign of a decent society when we've got these things. And
sorry, whereabouts on the Isle of Man is this?
If I made a funny quip about it, I couldn't mention the place without getting dragged down somewhere, would I? So, the Ring doorbells. Going on to that, I mean, who actually brought this in? Whose actual idea was it to do this?
The Information Commissioner.
Information Commissioner, okay. So it was his total idea, and that's been passed by government?
Well, I don't know that it was his personal idea, but obviously this whole thing about personal data now comes under the Information Commissioner, because anything to do with data is the Information Commissioner's what they call purview nowadays. So
okay.
If you're processing personal data, you have to be registered and you have to pay the statutory fee.
It's just a tax collecting, isn't it?
Well, you could say that, yes.
That's all it is, dressed up in something else. It's just another thing to take money off people and another regulation. That's all it is. And if the people wear it, then they'll do it with something else. So that's gone through time and history. If the people stand up and wear it, it'll carry on and they'll do something else. There's no real need for it. Common sense, again, was the first death of COVID, wasn't it? So we just go on with this here rubbish until we're taxed for every single little thing.
I can't see how they're going to actually police this. I mean, who's going to be in charge of this? We're surely not asking the police to actually look at this and check people's doorbells. And also, I mean, how is it going to be enforced? Is somebody who walking by a property, say, my personal data has been harvested, I'm going to launch a private prosecution, or would the person have committed a criminal act?
And again, we're talking about the growth of government. Someone somewhere will be employed to go around and do this, and someone will phone in and complain, and they'll go around with a badge on and do it and finger wag someone and get money off them. So it's just another growth of government, isn't it? You know, another arm for money collection. And what Howard was saying there before was, I think it's right. If people look now at what's going on in Ireland, I'm very aware of the footage that's going out there from Ireland of people on the streets and migrants. And this is going on in most of the Western world. I mean, it's coming into England. It's big time coming into America. It's changing the whole aspect of some cities. But going back to the Isle of Man, again, we should look after our own front doorstep. And I do remember, I think they were talking about putting some kind of passport or immigration desk at the sea terminal or something. Was that right, Andy?
There was some question also, I think, I can't remember, I mean, the Chief Constable was on about a year ago, Russ Foster was on, and I think he was talking about, at the moment, DOI are the people who police the sea terminal, and there may have been, I think he may have suggested that it may have been, he wanted it to be the police responsibility to look after the sea terminal rather than their occasional sweeps with drugs dogs.
Yeah, and I think in this day and age, and I'm not a person for Big Brother at all, as I'm sure you gather, but I think looking at what's going on in the adjacent island and the problems that they've got, which seems to be an attack on the Western world, the way this is going, I don't know, but it seems to be just in the Western climates, and I think we do need to protect our own doorstep in some way or form, and I have mentioned before in this programme about people coming here with no money looking for jobs, which I've noted up before. So, well, I mean,
that's been fairly well dealt with. I don't know whether you remember, was it last summer when there were half a dozen beggars turned up from the northwest of England and were given fairly short shrift, and in fact one went to jail, I think, for vagrancy, and one for misrepresenting war wounds. So that sticks out. We're fairly self-regulating where that's concerned, Ewan.
Well, yeah, but if you're not a vagrant, Andy, I mean, they were vagrants. But if you're not a vagrant, if you're just a person here walking around looking for work, you're not a vagrant. There's a grey area there, and there is people, as I identified, that were over here with a week's worth of money in their pocket looking for work from places like from Nigeria and places. So it is happening. Let's not beat around the bush with that.
Yeah, but that's then down to employers, isn't it? That's down to whether the employer will employ someone who doesn't have a work permit, and then that's the employer that's breaking the law.
Yes, indeed, but then people are still here. That's my point. The people are actually here. So they haven't stopped them before they get here. And once your problem's here, then the problem is a lot harder to get rid of. That's kind of my point with that one.
Okay.
And just finally on the housing and the flooding, and I mentioned the other day about just up the road from where I am at the moment. I mean, I was away for 5 weeks, and a massive development went up in Wood. In 5 weeks, I mean, it must be about 300 apartments, all ready for topping out, very, very fast, but all built on a floodplain. And it took them, I think it was about 6 months beforehand, getting the ground all built up to another level. And going back onto the floodplain issues, I mean, this is on the headwaters to the Everglades. So the year before, 660 homes got flooded out 3 foot high inside, and it was an old people's place, and everyone just lost their homes. So again, it's a dangerous aspect when you are dealing with flood areas, that's for sure. And I mean, it's noticeable in Onken when you get storm surge in Lower Onken, and the utilities don't really have an answer. I mean, we're dealing with a Victorian sewer system, and you get storm surge now with the amount of concrete that's laid down. The water has to go somewhere, and they haven't got an answer to it. They scratch their heads and go, well, the water's popping up through the manholes, but what can we do? So I think, we have to be very careful about where we build this stuff.
Well, there is a big difference between floods in Florida and floods in Poldhui, of course, and in Ramsey. Big difference. No alligators in Ramsey.
Yeah, massive difference, but we are getting heavier rainfalls now. That's for sure. Not going down the climate thing, but the truth of it is we are getting heavier rainfalls for whatever reason. And the more concrete that you build, that water's got to go somewhere. I think the new build in Peel that Dandora did, they've got to put holding tanks in there to release it slowly down through into Peel because of the Victorian sewer system. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's true.
Okay.
We have got them issues, so it's definitely worth taking on board about building in flood areas.
Okay, don't get too sunburnt this weekend, Ewan.
Well, I'm not. I'm actually going to watch Gloria Gaynor tomorrow night, but it's going to be interesting. She's 80 years old and going to be singing "I Will Survive."
Thanks for calling. Good to hear from you. And Steve's on now. Hi, Steve.
Good afternoon, Andy. I'd just like to pick up on something David Ashford said the other day.
Yeah.
He said the last thing you do on a speeding bus is shoot the driver. Now that's quoting what he said on your programme.
Right. Yeah, it was the bus driver analogy. Mr. Cannon driving the bus with the destination on the front.
Yeah, and he said, and I quote, the last thing you do is shoot the driver. Correct?
I can't remember, but go ahead, yeah?
Well, Guernsey and Jersey have recently shot their bus driver.
Oh, they've had a change of leader over there, yes.
Yeah, well, I'm just using the analogy.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to get at is, what was Mr. Ashford saying there that Mr. Cannon shouldn't be looked at?
I think he said he's not above scrutiny. But to paraphrase him, I didn't think he didn't think it was the right idea to go for a vote of no confidence because the fact is basically the only thing we've got. Because when everybody talks about this vote of no confidence, that's fine, but we don't know what's going to happen on the other side. So it's
neither did Jersey and neither did Guernsey, but they took that route. But we should at least be allowed to explore that same route.
Well, it's down to the MHKs. There have to be 13 MHKs.
Well, I mean, I just wish they'd grow some backbone and let's ask more questions. Let's get some transparency.
What particular is on your mind with this, Steve?
It's just the island plan seems absolutely totally wrong. You can't have 15,000 more people over here with the infrastructure we've got. You've just been touching on it earlier. We haven't even got a bus station.
Yeah, well, no, that's nobody can argue against that.
Well, I just think that people should ask more questions, and there should be a lot more transparency about what's going on with this government. Because it seems to me everything they touch, and in recent years has just gone down and down and down.
So what would be a good move as far as you're concerned? I mean, do you think, you reckon the 15,000 new people is a no-goer? Mr. Cannon reckons out of the 15,000 we'll get 4,000 workers, and that will help to move the economy along with tax and national insurance.
Right, with your 4,000 workers, say they're a family of two parents and a child. You've just trebled your health care there, and you can't even keep up with what we've got at the moment. So he needs to show what is going to come out of these, rather than just quoting figures like that. We're going to get so much money out of it. That money won't necessarily go to the health service. There needs to be a lot more clarity about what they tell us.
Okay. All right, Steve. I appreciate it. All good points and good questions. Thanks for calling today.
Thanks very much for listening, Andy.
All right, to 1:45 on Mannin Line.
Ready-made or made to measure. You'll love our collections of curtains and blinds here at Lifestyle Furniture. Make your windows wonderful with our amazing range of styles and designs, including vibrant options from Orla Keeley, Sarah Miller, Voyage Maison and more. And with our made-to-measure service, you can be sure your new blinds and curtains are a perfect fit for your home. Give wow to your windows with lifestyle furniture. Find us at Snugborough Trading Estate, Union Mills.
The Ginger Hall has it all. Check out the new restaurant, now open at the Ginger Hall Hotel, where you'll find a fantastic range of food, from classic winter warmer bistro-style dishes to delicious Sunday specials and great celebration meals. Don't delay. Book now on 897-231. Or visit our Facebook page for all our opening times, pictures and full menus. You'll even find details on our live music and more. The Ginger Hall really does have it all.
Wedding planners and photographers looking for a truly unique backdrop for wedding photography? Then consider the historic Queen's Pier in Ramsey for a stunning coastal backdrop for truly memorable photographs. It offers a fantastic location to photographers in exchange for an affordable donation. Visit the Queen's Pier Restoration on Facebook, or to discuss photo opportunities, call Graham on 355 104. That's 355 104. This audio has been kindly sponsored by Paul Carey & Sons.
Want a skin treatment you can trust to reduce the appearance of wrinkles and isn't a trend or a fad, or just another bit of marketing? From skin boosters to dermal fillers and the latest in laser technology with Alma Lasers. At the Tracy Bell Clinic, we now have more ways than ever to effectively harness your natural beauty. To book a consultation and to discover more, call the Tracy Bell Clinic on 613 323.
After a tough fortnight of results, FC Isle of Man returned to the bowl this weekend for a fixture that has produced huge entertainment over the last 2 years. The Ravens welcome West Didsbury and Chorlton to Manx Shores in the NWCFL Premier Division this Saturday. Can both sides produce yet another spectacle like those seen in recent times? Join me, Rob Pritchard and Sam Palmer for FC Isle of Man versus West Didsbury and Chorlton, kicking off at 6 p.m. this Saturday. Manx Radio will be providing full live match commentary on our DAB and AM 1368 channels. Live coverage of FC Isle of Man on Manx Radio is supported by Selton, investing in our community.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
I'd like to welcome a new Mannin Line listener. Well, I don't know whether he or she is listening right now, but at some point in the future, presumably. At least one baby was born yesterday, the 29th of February. Due to it being a leap year, those born on the 29th will technically only get the chance to celebrate their birthday every 4 years. There's a 1 in 1,461 chance of being born on a leap day. It's the rarest birth date on the planet. So one baby was born yesterday. There is one particular leapling, as it were. Remember, there is an election next Thursday in Ramsey. It's the commissioner's election. Other candidates are Sandra Cottam-Shea, Pauline Johns-Garrett, Sarah Kennedy-Hay and Joe Callister. They're on, and hopefully when we do the outside broadcast next Friday live from Queen's Pier in Ramsey, we'll have the winner on just to chat about the future. There'll be politicians, commissioners, we've got business people, and if you want to pitch up, by all means, there will be some tea and cake provided, I can tell you. So if you want to pop to Queen's Pier in Ramsey, tomorrow we'll be finding out what's happening on the pier with the restoration and what have you. We were there about a year ago, a little less than a year ago, I think, on Ramsey Pier. So maybe even those swimmers will be swimming past us as well. So next Friday, live from Queen's Pier in Ramsey. And of course, on Wednesday, it's a constituency Mannin Line. Because we're halfway through this Tynwald administration, we're going around all the constituencies. Earlier on this week, it was Douglas North with John Wannenberg and David Ashford. Next Wednesday, Ayr and Michael, the biggest constituency on the Isle of Man, talking to Alfred Cannon and Tim Johnston, MHKs for Ayr. The week after that, a couple of weeks later, Laurie Hooper and Alex Allenson will be on from Ramsey. Then Anne Corlett and Chris Thomas from Douglas Central, and Claire Christian and Sarah Maltby from Douglas South. So we'll be going round the entire Isle of Man. I did mention, but it bears repetition, that every Monday and Friday we're looking at 60 years on Manx Radio and going through the archives. Today we're going back to 1970, look at the official reopening of the renovated Laxey Wheel. Manx Radio broadcast live from the Lady Isabella on Tynwald Day in 1970, and we'll be looking back at that. I don't know whether you're in the motor trade or you've been trying to buy tyres, but I got a note in from Kenyon who tells me he was in a tyre place in Ramsey recently, recently, and apparently there's a big backlog of supplies coming to the Isle of Man. It's not just orders for tyres. They put the blame on the bad weather, but apparently because of all the cancelled sailings, food's been given top priority. But there's a shortage of materials on the Isle of Man. Some of the freight has been held back because oftentimes the people who shunt the freight back and forward have to throw quite a few ships in Heysham at the same time, and not everything goes on the boat. So I wonder if potential problems, and of course there is a worldwide problem with attacks on ships in around the Gulf, around what used to be Aden. So I don't know. Is there a shortage of materials on the Isle of Man? Lots of messages to get through, and lots of that's life. Your home is broken into and things get stolen. The criminals get a £250 fine. You provide video evidence without knowing you need to register. £10,000. It is £10,000 fine. The maximum fine, anyway, is £10,000 if you've got one of these video phones that covers beyond the curtilage. And you're in trouble. Vernon's with us. Hi, Vernon.
Hi, Andy. Just to let you know, I don't know whether you do know or not, but there used to be a very nice area at the not at the sea terminal, at the bus station. It used to be on the side by the bridge, and it used to be used by the buses servicing the airport.
Oh yes, you could. At one point, 60s. you could check in for the airport at the bus station. I mean, that was a cathedral to public service and public transport. Now we've got half a dozen bus stops, no loo and no waiting room.
Yeah, true. Now the other thing, while I'm on, apart from that, is about this business about power.
Yeah.
Well, Rolls-Royce have developed or are developing a wonderful nuclear unit.
Oh, the small nuclear power stations, yeah.
Small nuclear power station. What about the government going down that line?
Okay. All right, Vernon, thanks for being with us today.
All right.
Good to hear from you. Thanks. A note in from Steve, who said, Andy, how refreshing to hear a qualified scientist reconsidering the evidence and changing his mind regarding geothermal based on that evidence. The armchair experts who've been rubbishing wind farms and championing geothermal for months without any knowledge should take note. Well, thank you, Steve, and thanks to Graham Fox-Hume for clarifying the situation regarding geothermal. That's it. Thanks to Chris on the phones today. Have a fantastic weekend and make the most of the weather, yeah?
WINT. 60 years serving you as the nation's station. This is Manx Radio.
In the last few months, the Lady Isabella, the Laxey Wheel, named after Governor Charles Hope's wife, has been the subject of some talk over the design of a reception building in front of it. It also, in recent years, has had to have repairs to put right the wear and tear that giant wheel has suffered. But it was the subject of celebration on the nation's National Day in 1970, when, after some years of work, it was able to once again turn in Lady Isabella's memory. Manx Radio were there to capture that moment.
The official reopening of the Lady Isabella was held on Sunday, the 5th of July 1970. At approximately 3:30, the introduction was by Mr. W.E. Quayle, Chairman of the Tourist Board, JP MHK.
The reconstruction has been long and difficult, but our problems have been minor compared with the problems facing Robert Casement in 1854. Perhaps his greatest worry was in wondering if the stonework carrying the wheel and its attendant metalwork would be strong enough to withstand the sheer weight of the structure, to withstand the side forces caused by winter gales howling down this valley, or more insidious of all, the long-term, day-in, day-out vibration of the moving pots. He could well have been forgiven had he constructed a massive functional stone box with heavy buttresses. But he didn't do this. He designed a thing of beauty, of arches and cutaways that delight the eye as much today as in his time. But on Friday evening last, I was privileged to be present at the Laxey School, where the children staged a wonderful pageant of the history of the Great Laxey Mines. All the children did a first-class job, and I was particularly impressed with the infant classes, all in their period costume, when they sang an unusual song to the tune of London Bridge is Falling Down, My Fair Lady. Its opening line was Laxey Wheel is Falling Down, and its closing line was Isabella Turns Again, My Fair Lady. This then is your fair lady.
Part of island life for 60 years. This is your Manx Radio.